I have been putting off this video for 3 months, really, because my baby's 3 months now. Today, I'm going to share my birth story, and I already made a birth story vlog that's already been posted, so you can stop here, you can go watch that. Or actually, I guess it doesn't matter which one you watch first, but that one is a thing. It's out there, it's already uploaded. Yeah, I wanted to sit down and just talk and just like chat through my whole birth experience. I feel like I have to go ahead and like say a lot of disclaimers about my birth story and just like talking about birth and all that kind of stuff, because I'm going to talk about my experience, what I went through, how I view things, and how I feel looking back on it. And you may not feel the same way about birth and the process of birth, and you might have a completely different experience, and every single woman has a birth story, and we all have our own experiences, so I think we just need to give each other some grace. And if you don't agree with me about how I feel about something, it's cool. We get to believe and think for ourselves. So just want to put that out there that you might not agree with me. I mean, I'm putting this out there, so of course people are going to have opinions. It's totally fine. You can have your own opinion. But I would just like to say, just give me some grace. If you don't agree, you don't need to yell at me about how you feel. Okay. So my doula gave me really, really good advice, and she told me to write out my birth story within, I think she said within 24 or 48 hours, and it's just a stream of consciousness. So what I did is in the hospital, I had my phone, and I literally just, while everything was fresh, because you lose a lot as time goes on, it's crazy, I just typed out everything that I could remember and the way I felt about things. She sent me a full timeline, which is really nice and special to have to help me refer back to, because again, a lot of it was a blur. Okay, so starting out, you may have watched previous videos when I was pregnant about how I don't think I really talked too much about like my birth plan. Actually, I didn't, because of reasons like this, because the outcome can be totally different. So for me, my birth was almost completely opposite of what I had planned. And they say that happens. Me putting this video out there is also a way of me processing, and this is the reason why I've kind of put this video off. I've put it off because I have a new baby now, and that's my priority. But then also I've been putting it off because of being really disappointed, to be honest with you, in how things turned out. And when I say disappointed, people might get kind of weird about that, because they're like, you're healthy, baby's healthy, like that's literally what matters. And trust me, yes, it is what matters. And I am so beyond grateful, because a lot happened that I'm gonna get into, but I am so, so grateful that her and I are healthy, we're alive, we're great, and that is the outcome, and that is what we want. However, it's kind of ironic, because I had ordered a book called The Fourth Trimester a few days ago, and actually came last night, and I was just kind of looking through it and finding I was looking through it, and there's a chapter in there that talks about processing your birth story. And I'm like, that literally is such good timing right now. So basically the book was talking about it's important to accept and own and process your own birth story. And just because baby and mom are healthy doesn't mean that there wasn't trauma that needs to be worked through and that needs to be healed. And that book was talking about that whole saying of mom and baby, that's the only thing that matters. And it's like there's so much truth within that. But the book is saying in our culture that discounts what the woman is going through physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually after birth. And it just kind of discounts what women go through, and that needs to get worked through. So this is kind of the process of me doing that. I've been doing that for a few months now, but I think this book is going to help me in this area too. But me talking it through, I think is just going to be healing. And again, we all have our own story, so don't be mad at me for things that I say. If I'm disappointed in the way things went, this is me processing, and I did go through trauma. So yeah. Also, the book talks about talking about it. Whether you talk about it, you journal, you write it down, whether it's just for you or you share it like this or whatever, or share it with people in your life, that it helps to decrease postpartum depression by a landslide. So yeah, I'm gonna stop talking and just get into it, okay? All right, so going into my birth, I had planned, which I know they say, like, have your preferences and your, plan, because plans don't usually happen, but I did so much research, I did so much prepping, and I really felt confident in my birth plan, my birth preferences. I wanted to have an all-natural, unmedicated birth. I was going to have her in water because the place that I was at had that option. I did not want to be induced. I did not want interventions as much as possible. So that is kind of the preface going into the story. That was my view. That's what I desire. That's just who I am. Some people don't care and they're like, I want the epidural like right now, as soon as I get in there. Great. And again, everyone is allowed to want what they want for their own reasons, and it is cool. For me, I really, really, really wanted an all-natural, unmedicated birth for so many reasons that I'm not going to fully get into right now, but that was what was close to my heart that I honestly believed that I could do, because I believe this is the way our bodies are designed. Like, they're designed to have a baby. Like, we have been created for that, whether you choose to do that or not. We've been created to give birth. Like, our bodies know what to do. Billions of people have been having babies for years and years before modern medicine. So yeah, that's kind of my outlook on it. I really was like, I trust my body. I know that it's going to do its thing. Also, my desire was to labor at home as much as possible before going to the hospital. I feel like my thoughts are so chaotic right now, but I gave birth in a hospital with my midwife. I also had my doula. Yeah, so I had a really great team leading up to it that I really felt confident in. And yeah, so this is how it starts. It was a Wednesday, November 3rd, and I was 40 weeks and 6 days, and I had an appointment with my midwife at 10:30 in the morning. So the night before, and actually a few days leading up to this appointment, I had been feeling something really weird in my stomach. Not the baby, but some kind of like pain almost. Like, it felt like a restriction. It felt like there was like thumping, not only in that space, like not the baby kicking, it was just a different feeling than I had had the entire pregnancy, and it felt off. Something did not feel right. I was having even like throbbing in my face, in my gums, I felt like my heart was having palpitations. It wasn't anxiety, I know what that feels like, and I had never had high blood pressure at all. So it felt really weird. It just felt different, and I knew that something was just off. So anyway, Wednesday, I go to this appointment. They put me on the non-stress test, and they kept me on it for quite some time. Usually, I think that's like not a very long test. They just monitor babies' like heart rate and stuff like that. From that little thingy, they could see that I was super dehydrated. And I'm like, really? Okay. So they could tell that. So they're like, she's not moving a lot. Could be because you're dehydrated. She could be sleeping. So let me just keep you on this, and we'll see what happens. So I was on that thing for like an hour or something like that. It was a very long time. It'd be a miracle if I actually get this video done during her nap, by the way. Okay, so the nurse is looking at me on the monitor and looking at the baby and all that kind of stuff, and the baby's heart rate kept dipping. And she was like, if it's just a couple times, like, it's probably just a weird position she's in or whatever, but let me just like keep looking at it. So the midwife comes in and she shows us the graph, and she's like, okay, few things could be going on. Your placenta could be decaying because it does have like a shelf life, and sometimes it starts to lose its like nutrients and oxygen and that kind of things for the baby if you're past your due date, and it just depends on your body, but there's no way of really knowing unless you're like up in there and seeing it. So she's like, it could be that, or her cord is being compressed because there's a dip in her heart rate and there's a very consistent pattern that does not look good. And my midwife, super supportive of exactly what I wanted. The practice itself has like a 94% unmedicated birth rate. So we've talked about all these things. She advocates for the same things that I wanted. So I really felt like I could trust my birth team. So there is an OB at the practice, and I only had met her one time in case there was an emergency, and she was the one performing surgery. Because of the graph, what she saw, she really recommended me to come in for an induction that day. And my midwife was like, I know, this is not what you wanted. It's just so hard to know if this could be okay or not okay. Like, she's like, we could send you home, and if something were to happen, like, no one wants that. Or it could be completely fine. It's literally a toss-up. So this is where I'm just like, oh my God, I did not want to be induced for a lot of reasons. And I knew that if I had to be induced, it would be because it was completely medically necessary. And I just felt this wave of emotion of this is not what I want, but oh my gosh, I have to keep my baby safe. And I didn't feel pressure really. It's weird because it's like, do you feel pressure from like the medical industry, or are you listening to your intuition and knowing what you need to do? What's the right call for you? Because those can be completely two different things. So I was like, I had been feeling weird in that spot, and I kept telling Clark, I feel like she's being compressed or something like that. So when we got this news, I really felt like that was why I was feeling that way. Intuitively, I knew something was not right. This is not what I wanted. This is not the way I wanted it to go down, but I knew something was not right. So I was like, okay, I guess we're going to the hospital today to have a baby. So immediately I'm just like a complete disaster. I'm crying all the way home, which if you've seen that vlog, you see I just like cannot stop crying. Come home, we pack. They're like, just come back within a few hours. Like, don't take forever, but you know, take your time, go eat something, pack up the car, like take your time, you know, absorb this information. We called my mom immediately. She came down because she was staying here to watch Nala. So she gets here and we head to the hospital. We end up getting there around 4:30 that afternoon. And man, what a whirlwind of emotions. I was so dehydrated from crying. So it's just literally every little thing was just like the opposite of how I thought this was all going to go down. When we checked in, the nurses were all on a shift change or something and all seemed very, very miserable. They've had long days. Okay, it's fine. But new mom coming in, I'm like, everyone was like really rude. It was not a welcoming experience. And I'm already like super emotional. So we go into triage. I get my COVID test, do all the paperwork, all that kind of stuff. We are in triage for like 6 hours. It was so bad. I was getting my hep block, which I kind of went back and forth with the nurse about because that was on my birth plan that I didn't want to get the hep block. I did not want to have that right away if it wasn't necessary, but I was being induced, so it was necessary. That's the gist of all that. So a girl comes in, she's doing my arm, and she's like digging in there. Can't find a vein because I'm like dehydrated. She's digging in there in my forearm actually because I had talked to my doula and she's like, get your forearm because you want to be able to bend your arms. You want to be able to bend your wrist if you're on hands. Oh, I just literally spilled my tea everywhere. Oh, okay. I keep talking. So she's like, you want to be able to have mobility. You want to be able to like hold your baby, breastfeed, all the things without having it like right here. So girl can't get it. Tries again and on a different, I think on the inside of my forearm or something. And I look over after she's been digging in me for like 20 minutes. She's a student. And if you're a student, you have to practice. I get it. Don't be mad at me. But oh my God, I was already going through it. I was like, I would have denied this. I would have had someone come in who knows what they're doing because I'm just like getting dug into. Anesthesiologist had to come in and he had to do the other arm. I ended up getting pricked 5 different times. When I tell you my arms were completely bruised after the fact and swollen, it was awful. It felt like 400 bee stings in my arms. So for the induction, we started out with Cervidil. So that's like a tampon that goes in you. It's in you for 12 hours. It has prostaglandins, which are the things that make your cervix like ripened. And then once it gets like ripened enough, and I think dilated enough, it's supposed to encourage dilation. And then hopefully contractions will start because of the ripening. It's not like Pitocin that like makes you contract. So they're like, that's kind of like how we're gonna ease into it. It has to be in for 12 hours. If it doesn't work after 12 hours, it has to be in another 12 hours, and then we assess from there. So we get into labor and delivery room around like 11 p.m. that Wednesday night because everything took forever. But we got in, Clark set up like the fairy lights and like the flameless candles, which I highly recommend. It was so relaxing and so peaceful in our room and so nice. So around 11 p.m. is when I actually was able to get the Cervidil because I was finally in my room. So they're like, okay, 12 hours, we'll see what happens. So I'm like, okay, I could potentially have this in. It will start to kind of do its thing. I'll wake up and then start contracting on my own. Because it's not supposed to start contractions, but sometimes you will start contracting because of it doing its job, basically. Okay, so I go to sleep Wednesday night, wake up Thursday morning, 4:30 in the morning, full on contractions, like hard and strong contractions. So this is the point where labor has started, officially started, because I'm having contractions. They're about 2 to 3 minutes apart. I'm like, oh my God, okay, yes, this is good. The Cervidil is still in, and they're like, this is great. So if you just keep progressing on your own, that was the only intervention that you would have had to do, and like could be good. So it was really, really like, this is gonna work. The Cervidil is gonna be the thing that like gets this thing started, and then I'm gonna like do the rest on my own. So then after 12 hours of the Cervidil being in, they took it out. So this was at 11 a.m. and they're like, the goal is for you to keep contracting on your own once it's taken out. And I did. So that was like really encouraging. I think they wanted to see for like 4 to 6 hours if I was still having contractions, and I was. So from the first contraction, 2 to 3 minutes apart, very, very, very strong. I was avoiding getting checked to see what I was dilating because I just didn't want to get checked a lot because of infection and things like that. And my doula and I had a conversation about if I wanted to know where I was and how many centimeters I was dilated. And I was like, well, yeah, I want to know. But then we had the conversation of like, it can be a mental thing to where if you know and it's not the number you want to hear and you like really aren't progressing, it can set you back because your body has been doing so much work already. It can be really discouraging. So I was like, okay, don't tell me. Like, I don't want to know. I'm just going to like let my body keep laboring and do its thing. So maybe I'll want to know like when I'm further along, if I'm at like an 8, then I'll be like, okay, let's freaking go. But at the beginning I was like, okay, it's cool. Like, don't tell me. So I ended up getting checked around like 3 p.m. that day, and I didn't know what it was, but apparently I was barely a 1. So that's fun. So we did decide to do a membrane sweep at that point because she knew that I was like not progressing. I was 1 centimeter and 80% effaced. So we did the membrane sweep, which she had done at the appointment on Wednesday, which I avoided all of those up until like I was past due. That membrane sweep in the hospital was so painful. Something about it was like, oh my God. She said that my cervix and stuff where she had to sweep is like super, super high in there. So that's fun. It was very intense, I'll say. And I was like, dang, okay. So you know when you like get punched in the nose and you instantly start crying? That's literally how it felt. I just had tears. I was like, oh my God. So I was like, okay, baby's gonna come out without any medicine. So like I've gotta be able to handle this, right? So I think later we had a conversation about me not being progressed a lot or something, because eventually I found out because it had been taking so long already. So she was like, okay, here's some of your options so we can avoid Pitocin, and you know, you do not want the epidural. So like, here's some other things we can do. So the Foley bulb was an option. I'd only heard about the Foley bulb one other time, and someone said they did not have a great experience with it, but I was like, I haven't really heard much about it. Like, tell me more about it. And I didn't want to like base my decision off like one person's story. So I was like, okay, if it's not medicine, but it is an intervention, obviously, but like I need to progress. So like, let's have a conversation. So basically it's like 2 pool balls like this. So one goes on the inside of the cervix and the other's on the outside. And like the pressure of that is supposed to help you dilate and get you to like a 4 or a 5, because once they can tug on it and it comes out, that means you're at a 4 or 5. So I kept saying, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Eventually I was like, okay, if that's an option that's going to get me to like a 4 or 5, and then I start progressing on my own, like quickly, like cool, let's do it. So I decided to do it. Things went through the roof after the Foley bulb. It took things to another level. I was already like in a very primal animal state up until this point. And then it just like I went to a different planet somewhere far, far away after that was in. I don't want to scare anyone, but my experience was, it was really, 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 really painful. Not her putting it in. It was like after the fact. The pressure was so great. And if you have like medicine, like cool, like you'd be fine. But I went through the roof. That was the turning point to like all these other things that are to come. So I'm about 12 hours in at this point and don't have any medicine. And after this Foley bulb, I'm like losing my mind, literally losing my mind. And I'm someone that's like, I'm not going to feel super confident in front of people to like yell and moan and groan and all the things, but like, you don't care. Like, you don't care. I did not care. I was a freaking animal. It was really intense. So since I was like losing my mind, I was like, okay, let's talk again about the options before an epidural. Like what else can I be doing here? So ended up doing the IV medicine that lasts for about 2 to 3 hours. I was like, okay, because I'm exhausted at this point. I'm exhausted. I'm super dehydrated. And I knew that I needed to reserve energy or get some kind of rest for the main event. Let's just do the drip medicine. It lasts 2 to 3 hours. I'm not super far along, so it's going to wear off before, the baby's born and all that kind of stuff. So, because I didn't want it to affect her, it was like a whole mental battle, guys. It was a whole thing. Decided to do it. And I was finally able to rest and get some kind of sleep. And I was even like moaning and yelling through my sleep, through contractions, apparently. That was a thing. So your body's still gonna keep doing what it's doing. Now we're into Thursday evening. It was like 8:30 or 9 p.m., something like that. So I've been well over 24 hours since we've been in the hospital. So the medicine had worn off at this point and the Foley ball was still in. And then they tugged on it and that bad boy came out. So I was at like a 4 at this point. So like well into labor and I was at a freaking 4. Oh, and I did forget to mention this, which was like such a blessing. This is like one of like my favorite things of the entire birth story was that my mom was able to be there. So there's so many restrictions on hospitals and stuff right now because of the pandemic. They're being super careful. Visitors were not allowed. You were allowed to have your support person and then a certified doula could be in the room with you. So that's what I had. And then that day, literally that day, they changed the rules and said that you could have an extra support person. So we called my mom and we're like, come to the hospital. You're allowed to be here. We don't know how long this is going to last. Come to the hospital and be here. So she was able to be there. She came Thursday, so that morning, Thursday morning. Thursday night now, visiting hours were over, so they actually sent my mom home, which she fought with the nurse and was like, if this baby is born without me here and I missed it because you're sending me home, like, I'm gonna be really upset. But no, I got to go through another full night. But the nurses were like, she's not progressed a lot at all, so like, I really think you can go home, sleep through the night, get some nice rest, come back early in the morning, and you won't miss it. And they were not wrong. So it's like 10 or 11 p.m. Thursday night and I'm losing my mind, literally losing my mind. So then the conversation of Pitocin came up, which I had been avoiding so bad because I heard it brings on labor like hard and strong and I had already been experiencing it hard and strong and I did not have an epidural at this point. So I just said no so many times. And then finally I told my midwife, I was like, listen, I'm still at a 4. I'm done. So I was like, let's just start Pitocin. Very, very low level. It's like a 2 is what they start. And they're like, let's just start you super low for a few hours and just see if that helps you progress. Cause like I was just really, really struggling. Okay, we have a little surprise guest. She just woke up and needs to eat. Oh yeah, Pitocin. So finally I was just like, let's do it. Let's see if it's gonna help me progress. So we did that around like 10 or 11 that night. Finally went to sleep for like a little bit, still like moaning and groaning through contractions. Guys, they are freaking insane. They are so crazy. So then Friday morning rolls around and it's about like 3:30 in the morning and I wake up from like getting maybe like 2 hours of, it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours of sleep, something like that. Got up at 3:30 and I'm like full on, like I'm like yelling at this point, just yelling. And I don't even know how Clark did not wake up during this time because I was literally